a different world, on one of the continents named Ujodo, there was a cruel and oppressive king called the Black King. Everyone hated him and lived through the worst days of their lives under his reign. One day, however, an unknown knight decided to gather and form an army called the Volunteers' Army to finally overthrow the Black King. Our story begins after the knight had assembled his army and spent some time in battles against the Black King, now standing before his castle, ready for the ultimate confrontation. The king declares that destruction is the fate awaiting the world and insists everyone must accept it, just as others have. But the brave knight refuses to stay silent and counters that fate can be changed, and this change won't be dictated by the king. He attacks the king's surrounding guards, defeating them one by one, while the rest of the Volunteers' army is outside the castle, rallying under the inspiring words of a princess encouraging them to reclaim the castle and their continent. Inside, the Black King remains calm and confident, seated on his throne, unmoved by the events around him. This doesn't deter the brave knight, Yori, who fights tirelessly to eliminate all the guards, aiming to confront the king himself. Outside the castle, the Black King's soldiers multiply, and a sinister woman named Arenza, loyal to the king, takes pleasure in slaughtering the Volunteers' army. Despite her cruelty, the Volunteers' army, composed of powerful kings, princes, and clans harnessing mana power, stands firm against every assault from the Black King's forces. Meanwhile, Yori finally eliminates all the guards and catches his breath, channeling all his remaining mana to strike the king. However, the Black King mocks Yori's feeble mana. Unshaken, Yori attacks, causing an explosion in the castle. Some princes from the Volunteers' army witness the castle's destruction and prematurely celebrate, believing Yori succeeded. They decide to enter the castle to see what happened. Unfortunately, amidst the thick smoke, the Black King emerges, dragging Yori in his hand. He heads toward a young woman from the Volunteers' army named Fina, demanding she hand over the book and fairy in her possession. At this moment, it's revealed that Fina is the Black King's daughter. Unlike her father, she is kind-hearted and opposes his deeds. The book and fairy she holds are the keys to unleashing the darkness he desires to spread across the world. When Fina refuses to comply, the king strikes her, causing her to fall. The fairy, Barika, tries to defend Fina, but the Black King grabs her and declares that she symbolizes the light and hope of the world. By killing her, he believes he can engulf the world in fear and darkness. The Black King begins choking Barika, but Princess Urina from the Volunteers' army enters the castle and shoots an arrow at the king's hand, forcing him to release the fairy before she dies. Urina vows not to forgive the king for killing her father. In response, the Black King summons more of his guards to slow them down and keep them from reaching him. At that moment, Yori regains consciousness and sees what's happening. He grabs his sword from the ground and attacks the king, but the Black King is far stronger and deflects the attack, causing Yori to fall and bleed. The king then turns toward his daughter Fina to take the book. Terrified, Fina clings tightly to the book. Suddenly, the book emits a bright yellow light, and as the king and Fina both touch it simultaneously, it splits in two, with each holding half. Barika the fairy disappears. Instead of emitting light, the books start releasing darkness. This darkness grows, spreading out of the castle. The Black King declares that soon the entire world will be engulfed in darkness. The spreading blackness is visible across the continent, instilling fear in all the kingdoms and clans. The Volunteers' army realizes they have lost the war. Days pass, and the castle remains shrouded in darkness. The Volunteers' army retreats, preparing to disband, with each prince planning to take their forces back home. Meanwhile, Yori, still unconscious from his injuries, is cared for by Fina. Princess Urina gathers with two other members of the Volunteers' army and discusses the situation. She acknowledges that Yori's army is now disbanded and laments the unexpected strength of the Black King. Burkhart, one of the group members, apologizes for what he's about to say but criticizes their decision to rely on someone as young and inexperienced as Yori. Urina defends Yori, stating that he was the only one capable of uniting them and giving them hope, which isn't a fault. However, Burkhart insists they should have chosen a leader based on skill and experience, not passion and hope. He suggests Urina is the most suitable person to lead the Volunteers' army moving forward. Urina declines the offer, explaining that her motivation was never about saving the continent, but solely about avenging her father's death. She credits Yori for giving her hope during her darkest times, and decides to stay behind while the rest of the army returns to their kingdom. The commander agrees to leave 3 individuals, Ares, Burkhart, and Win, with her for protection. Finally, Yori wakes up, much to Fina's delight. Remembering everything, Yori apologizes to Fina, but she reassures him that his recovery is all that matters. Fina informs the others of Yori's awakening, and Urina and others visit him to check on his plans. Yori reveals that he intends to return to the capital. Urina excitedly asks asks if he plans to rebuild the volunteers' army, but Yuri clarifies that he's only going to report their losses to someone named Gilbert. Meanwhile, in the city, poverty is rampant. An elderly woman stands before a merchant with a few coins, pleading for an apple. The merchant refuses, dismissing her for having too little money. Another man steps in, shoving the old woman and purchasing the entire basket of apples, crushing her coins underfoot and mocking her poverty. A boy intervenes, defending the elderly woman and demanding an apology. When the man refuses, the boy fights him, knocking him down and taking a few apples before running off. The merchant chases him, shouting "Thief!" The boy climbs a tall tower, mocks them both, and escapes. Later, he finds the elderly woman and gives her the apples, helping her with her cart. Grateful, the old woman invites the boy to her home for a meal, but he politely declines. Meanwhile, Yuri, Urina, and a few volunteers head to the capital, witnessing the dire state of the city. Dead animals, withering crops, and suffering citizens. Farmers, angry at Yuri for failing to defeat the Black King and giving them false hope, hurl mud and insults at him. Yuri is too ashamed to even apologize. As they continue, the elderly woman from earlier runs toward them, pleading for help. Her home has been attacked by the dark fog, and soldiers of the Black King are present. Yuri, Urina, and the group rush to her house, where they find the boy fighting the soldiers. They join him in battle, helping him defeat the attackers. Yuri notices the boy doing something extraordinary, absorbing mana from everyone and using it to fight. Stunned, Yuri charges at the boy, standing back to back with him. Together, they defeat the soldiers in seconds. The boy introduces himself as Aram, recognizing Yuri as the leader of the volunteers' army. Aram reveals his name to Yuri before collapsing, making everyone think he has died. However, Yuri reassures them that Aram is merely unconscious. One of the soldiers asks a girl named Marina to prepare a healing spell to aid Yuri. Everyone gathers around, wondering who this strange boy is. At the same time, Irinza is trying to locate Yuri and his army, eventually discovering their destination, heading towards their capital city. Later that night, Aram wakes up in a quiet place. As he recalls what happened, he wanders around until he finds Yuri. Aram asks about the old woman, and Yuri reassures him that she's safe, calming Aram down. He thanks Yuri and his army for their help and asks if Yuri is truly the leader of the volunteer army. Before Yuri can answer, Fina arrives, overjoyed to see Aram awake, and tells them dinner is nearly ready and that the rest of the army is returning from patrol. Everyone gathers around a fire, chatting while waiting for dinner. When Fina serves the food, a soldier named Kane takes the first bite but is visibly horrified. The rest immediately realize the food is inedible. It's a recurring issue with Fina's cooking. However, Aram finishes his plate and even asks for more, shocking everyone. Kane asks Aram how he managed to eat it. Aram replies that it was delicious, prompting Kane to ask what Aram usually eats. Aram casually answers, lizards, which explains why he enjoyed Fina's food. They laugh and change the topic to avoid upsetting Fina. They ask Aram if he's from the village. Aram explains he was just passing through, helping the old woman, and decided to intervene when he saw what was happening. Impressed by his bravery, they ask how he planned to save the entire village alone. Aram explains he couldn't abandon them to face the dark army by themselves. Admiring his courage, they express their awe, but Aram humbly admits he has a long way to go to be as strong as them. They encourage him, saying his determination is enough to achieve his goals quickly. Suddenly, the book in Fina's possession begins glowing black and emitting dark smoke. Everyone panics, trying to figure out how to control it. Even Fina is overpowered as the book's energy flings her away, but Aram catches her hand, preventing her from being thrown far. The book calms down, the black light retracts, and Fina collapses. Yuri catches her, confirming she's unharmed. Confused, Aram asks about the book and the dark energy. They explain it's called The Chronicle, a book that records all the world's events. If darkness consumes the world, the chronicle darkens too. A growing black ink-like stain on the book distresses them all. Meanwhile, the Black King flips through his own copy of the chronicle, asking Irinza if she has located the fairy Barika. Surprised, Irinza realizes Barika hasn't died but disappeared. Simultaneously, Yuri and Fina tell Aram about Barika's significance as the source of light and hope for their world. They are convinced she's alive and must be saved. The Black King, however, orders Irinza to find and eliminate Barika, believing he he cannot destroy the world while she lives. After their conversation, Aram sits alone, reflecting on the day's events. Yuri approaches and asks if Aram truly wishes to grow stronger. Aram confirms, but when Yuri invites him to join the volunteer army, Aram declines, preferring freedom over joining a military force. He explains he's always fought alone. Yuri challenges him, suggesting that luck, not skill, has allowed him to survive stronger foes. Aram retorts that Yuri, despite being with his army, was also defeated. Yuri hints at something important he wants to share but doesn't immediately reveal it. A soldier interrupts, informing them they found a fog-free path, and they set off at dawn, reaching the city gates. However, they discover it under siege by the Black King's soldiers. The city's army holds the gates, refusing to let the enemy pass. Yuri, Yurina, and their forces join the battle, aiding the defenders. After the battle, the city's commander is relieved to see Yuri alive. Yurina asks for a war update, learning the southern bridge and front wall are destroyed. They're led to see the damage firsthand. Meanwhile, Aram fights courageously, impressing the commander, who asks Yuri if Aram is a new recruit. Yuri confirms with a nod. Yurina and Fina assist the injured villagers while Yuri assures the commander they'll protect the village, urging him to assist the witch Eldra, defending the poor districts. Yuri and Aram team up to fend off the Dark Army, but Aram drains mana from Burkhart during the fight. Furious, Burkhart confronts him, accusing him of stealing mana. Confused, Aram is about to respond when Burkhart is called away. Watching Burkhart, Aram notices Yuri, Kane, and a girl forming a trio to eliminate enemies instantly. Impressed, Aram claps and calls it incredible. They laugh at his innocence, explaining their combined mana made them stronger. Excited, Aram asks to try. They tell him he's not ready yet. It requires rigorous training. Burkhart dismissively claims it's impossible for Aram. Offended, Aram insists he has skills, but Burkhart criticizes his techniques, warning him not to steal mana again. Frustrated, Aram declares he doesn't want to be there and runs off. Yuri tells Burkhart they'll need Aram, but Burkhart remains skeptical. More Dark Army soldiers attack, overwhelming Yuri's team. Injured, Burkhart collapses, but Aram returns just in time, defeating many soldiers and sharing mana to revive Burkhart and Yurina. Aram declares them even and they fight together, finally overcoming the enemy. Yuri and Kane praise Aram, who reveals his decision to stay and prove Burkhart wrong. Yuri gathers his team, declaring he will rebuild the volunteer army. Inspired, everyone regains hope. Yuri credits Aram for restoring their optimism. Burkhart, still distrustful of Aram, collapses from his injuries despite Yurina urging him to give Aram a chance. Everyone is shocked about him, especially Yurina, so they take him for treatment and stay by his side until he gets better. Once Yurina is reassured about his condition, she tells him she wants to talk to him and asks him for something. Borkarat tells her to speak and ask for whatever she needs, and he'll fulfill it right away. She then tells him she wants him to stay with Yuri and his group. Borkarat is surprised and says, "Weren't we supposed to return to the capital and reorganize the army together?" Yurina replies that she wants him to help Yuri and the army in her place because she won't be continuing with them and is sure he is the best person to support Yuri since she trusts him deeply. However, Borkarat refuses to leave her but cannot oppose his princess. He agrees reluctantly, saying, "If you insist, then I'll do it." Yurina also mentions Aram, saying she believes he'll be a great soldier but lacks experience. She asks Borkarat to mentor Aram. Borkarat agrees, assuring her not to worry. At that moment, Yurina's assistant enters and informs her that Commander Gilbert wants to see her. As Yurina leaves, Borkarat thinks Yurina asked him to leave because he can no longer protect her after his injury. This thought deeply upsets him. Meanwhile, Commander Gilbert is with Vina and Yuri. Yuri recounts what happened in the Black King City and how their mission failed. Vina mentions she heard the secondary capital suffered some damages as well. Commander Gilbert reassures her, saying the damage there is nothing compared to what happened in the main capital. Gilbert then asks Yuri why he thought of forming an army to defeat the Black King again. Yuri replies, "Hope. Hope is what kept me from giving up and made me fight to defeat the Black King and change the fate of everyone." Watching Aram train from above, Yuri adds, "Aram is the one who reignited that hope in me." The three of them enter Gilbert's office, discussing their next step to visit the first sage's tower and meet the three sages to gain any clue about the fairy Barika's whereabouts. Gilbert tells them to ask for help if needed, but admits the current situation limits his ability to provide significant assistance. At that moment, Yurina enters the office. Gilbert stands, opens a box, and hands them mirror-shaped communication devices, telling them to use them anytime they need to contact him. Yurina and Yuri thank him for his support. Meanwhile, Aram, exhausted from training, goes to the market searching for food, but realizes he doesn't have money. His hunger tempts him to steal bread, but he ultimately decides against it. Just then, Aram hears a girl scream. He rushes over to find a man holding a knife and threatening her in the marketplace. Dusty, a weapons merchant, tries to convince the man to put down the knife he stole from his shop without harming the girl. Without hesitation, Aram grabs his sword, charges at the man, disarms him, and saves the girl. Guards arrive to arrest the man. Dusty approaches Aram, impressed by his bravery, and introduces himself, explaining he supplies weapons to the volunteer army. Aram notes Dusty is wearing a soldier's attire. Dusty replies he's both a merchant and a soldier. He gifts Aram a sword, saying it was crafted by a famous blacksmith. Aram admires the sword and thanks Dusty, who warns him that the sword reflects the spirit of its wielder. Aram loves the sword and decides to name it. Meanwhile, Yuri remains with Commander Gilbert, discussing the growing strength of darkness. Gilbert explains how, with each victory of the Black King's army, the darkness grows stronger. Showing Yuri his blackened hand, Gilbert reveals it's only a matter of time before the darkness engulfs his entire body under the Black King's control. Yuri assures him he won't allow that to happen, asking Gilbert to trust him as he vows to save him at all costs. Borkarat notices Aram training and recalls Yurina's words. He advises Aram to channel his energy effectively during practice. Aram asks about Borkarat's injury, who reassures him he's fine now. Noticing Aram's new sword, Borkarat angrily questions where he got such a unique weapon. Aram explains it's a gift from Dusty. Borkarat accuses him of stealing it, causing an argument between them. Yurina intervenes, asking what's happening. Borkarat accuses Aram of theft, but Aram denies it, insisting he'd never steal. Yuri questions Borkarat, asking what made him suspect Aram. Dusty enters and clarifies he gave Aram the sword. Yurina orders Borkarat to apologize. Reluctantly, Borkarat admits his mistake and apologizes before walking away, upset. Wynn asks Yurina if she's sure about her decision to send Borkarat with Yuri and the army. Yurina, clearly distressed, tells Wynn that Borkarat is the best person to understand and support Yuri on his journey. Later, Yuri sits alone, troubled by what happened to Gilbert with the black fog. Vina approaches and asks if he's okay, having overheard his conversation with Gilbert. Yuri hides his sorrow, urging Vina to rest since they never know when they'll find such a place to sleep again. Before leaving, Yuri thanks her for staying by his side. Alone in his room, Yuri reflects on the upcoming battle with the Black King, struggling with self-doubt and imagining his death and the world's destruction if he faces the king. The turmoil ends when a knock interrupts his thoughts. Aram enters, thanking Yuri for standing up for him against Borkarat. He confesses he used to steal but has stopped for some time now. Yuri changes the topic, asking Aram what he'll do once he gains the strength he desires. Without hesitation, Aram says he'll destroy the Black Army himself. He reveals how they destroyed his village, leaving him alone ever since. Everywhere he settles, they appear and wreak havoc, fueling his desire to grow stronger. Aram asks Yuri to teach him all his skills to make him capable. Yuri explains that mastering swordsmanship and mana takes time but advises Aram to start by being worthy of the sword he holds. The next day, Yuri, Yurina, and their team decide to leave the city. Yurina plans to head to another city with her army to recruit more soldiers for the volunteer army. The city's commander assigns DRA, a strong and reputable figure, to assist Yuri's team. They are thrilled by this reinforcement, which includes another notable fighter. As they bid farewell to Yurina, they agree she will head to the capital to gather knights, while the rest proceed to the sage's tower. Borkarat, feeling out of place without Yurina, broods among Yuri's group. Yuri asks him to train Aram in swordsmanship again, but Borkarat refuses, citing his sour mood and storming off, preoccupied with serving Yurina and no one else. As Borkarat walks, he steps on a small tree branch, releasing Irinza. Startled, Borkarat listens as Irinza assures him she's on his side. She manipulates him into believing Yurina has abandoned him. Suddenly, she uses her power to spread the black fog into his body. The black fog book with Vina reacts, emitting dark mist again. Spotting the fog coming from the forest, Yuri suspects something has happened to Borkarat and rushes to him with Kane and the others, only to be hindered by Irinza's summoned soldiers. Meanwhile, Borkarat is engulfed by the fog as the Black King speaks to him, saying his place is not with Yuri. Since Yurina abandoned him, he should join the Black King's army. When Yuri arrives, he finds Borkarat emitting dark fog, transforming into one of the Black King's creatures, attacking them. Everyone is too shocked to respond. Irinza commands Borkarat to cease fighting and continue later before before leaving with him. During this time, Urena is walking with Wayne on their way to the city. However, she stops suddenly, sensing something unsettling, and it turns out Yuri is calling her through the communication devices Gilbert gave them. He tells her what happened to Burkhart and apologizes deeply, feeling guilty for the incident. Urena becomes very upset about Burkhart's fate, but assures Yuri that he is not to blame and asks if everyone else is safe. Yuri reassures her that they are all fine, to which Urena responds that their safety is what matters most. Yuri informs her that the Black King now knows their location and that nightfall is approaching. He adds that if the enemy attacks during the night, they'll be in grave danger, but they have a chance to escape and relocate before the enemy strikes again. Urena agrees, telling him it's a good idea. Yuri urges her to take care of herself before they end the call. Urena feels deeply saddened until one of her soldiers rushes to her, shouting that the capital is on fire. Shocked, she and Wayne quickly head to the capital. Upon arrival, they witness the Black King's soldiers setting the city ablaze, destroying shops, and spreading chaos. Some of the soldiers are ordinary people who have joined the Black King's army, while others are still deciding to join. The Black King has convinced them that by joining his forces, he will protect them from the world's impending destruction in exchange for spreading darkness everywhere. In the capital, a commander named Cervantes and his soldiers fight back against the Black King's army. He orders his assistant to evacuate the city to minimize casualties and focuses on bolstering their forces to regain control. Once the situation is somewhat under control, the city's people blame their own soldiers for the earlier disaster. Suddenly, a Black King soldier appears with a bomb, intending to blow up the palace and city. One of Urena's soldiers swiftly intervenes, snatching the bomb from the attacker's hand. Urena arrives and questions Cervantes and his men about the chaos in the capital. They explain that the Black King has been manipulating people into joining his army, convincing them to burn the capital as a way of pledging allegiance. The young soldier who carried the bomb tells Urena that she cannot save the world alone, and that the Black King will save them if they join his army. She is bewildered and asks him who told him this. He replies that everyone is talking about it. Urena's soldiers dismiss it as mere rumor, but the young soldier insists he doesn't want to die and would rather become a monster and join the Black King's forces. Urena becomes very emotional, recalling what happened with Burkhart. She tells him that becoming a monster will mean losing his friends and family forever, and that it's selfish to save oneself at the expense of others. She tears up, imagining Burkhart, and quickly ends her speech as everyone notices her distress. She then heads to the princess in the palace to check on her, noting the situation's chaos and how the spreading darkness is unusually rapid. They discuss the risk of more people selling their souls to the Black King, which would worsen the war and make victory even harder. Later, Urena meets with her army commanders, laying out a large map of the continent. One of them mentions the 9 territories, led by someone named Shuza, who are still near the capital. Urena is surprised they haven't moved since their last battle with the Black King. Another commander explains that Shuza's forces are still too weak after the war. He suggests they try to persuade Shuza to join their volunteer army. Urena likes the idea and instructs him to send Shuza a message. Meanwhile, Yuri has been injured after Burkhart attacked him. His arm has turned completely black, similar to Gilbert's condition. Vina is by his side, trying to stop the darkness from spreading further. Yuri assures her that he's fine, but she refuses to leave him. She uses the book, gripping it tightly until it glows yellow, placing it on Yuri's arm, but it has no effect. Surprised, she tries again, yet the outcome remains unchanged. The following day, Yuri and his team prepare to head to the Wise Tower. Upon seeing the massive tower from afar, Aram is awestruck by its size. Yuri explains that the 3 sages there should be able to locate Barika. Suddenly, a group called the Wizard Army, led by Melikar, blocks their path. Melikar refuses to let them pass unless Yuri proves he has regained his strength by forming the volunteer army once again. A small battle ensues, with the Wizard Army demonstrating incredible strength and high skills. Even Dara doubts her mana can withstand Melikar's attacks. However, Aram helps by transferring some of his mana to her, empowering her to counter Melikar's attacks and turn the battle in their favor. Thanks to Aram and Dara, they win the fight and proceed to the Wise Tower, where they meet the 3 sages, Dilma, Fatima, and Melikar, who had just fought them. Melikar reveals he was merely testing them, but Dilma accuses him of being bored rather than conducting any real test. Aram, unimpressed, tells the sages they're not what he expected, as he thought they would be truly wise. Cain agrees with him, saying Aram has a point. The 3 sages then reveal an image of the Black King's castle surrounded by dense black fog. They explain that the castle emits a powerful dark energy, creating the fog around it. Melikar talks at length, prompting Dilma to silence him, summarizing that the barrier barrier around the castle has become nearly impenetrable. When asked if the people will trust them again, Urina confidently states that she will win this time. She asks Fatima if she knows anything about Barika's whereabouts. Fatima confirms Barika is alive but trapped in a place she cannot escape from alone. When Vina asks for details, Fatima cryptically says there's still hope and they must go to the labyrinth pass. After the meeting, Aram explores the tower and encounters two members of the wizard army who praise his ability to transfer mana despite his young age. They offer him advice about the war, but when Aram asks if they'll join the volunteer army, they decline, stating they only take orders from the three sages. Meanwhile, Dara speaks with Kadia, another member of the wizard army, who apologizes for attacking her earlier. Dara acknowledges it was under Melikar's orders and understands. When Melikar himself is mentioned, he asks Dara when they plan to leave. Dara responds that they'll stay until they figure out how to penetrate the Black King's castle, as they didn't come all this way for nothing. Their banter reveals a shared love for challenges and playful rivalry. Days pass with no progress on Barika's location. Kane suggests they head to Jijito, the fairy island, to consult Ujito about Barika. Vina, however, insists they first go to the labyrinth, arguing that Fatima wouldn't have advised it without reason. The wizard army also announces they'll join the labyrinth journey, claiming Melikar is interested in an artifact recently discovered there. Aram is delighted by their camaraderie, but they clarify they're acting on Melikar's orders. Motivated, Yuri rallies them all, and they set off together, unified like one team. As soon as they arrive at the maze, they are surprised by a black snowstorm attacking them. They don't expect the maze to be controlled by the blackness of the Black King. On top of that, the king's soldiers attack them relentlessly. Every time they manage to defeat one, they are shocked to see its broken bones reassembling, making it impossible to kill. Yuri tells Marina to use her healing magic. Marina chants her spell, and her magic hits the king's soldiers. Since they are not truly alive, the spell backfires and they die. Suddenly, they hear more soldiers approaching from a distance, and a small, adorable creature runs away from them, clinging to Aram in fear. Unexpectedly, the snow under Aram begins to shake and collapse. Aram falls, and when Yuri tries to catch him, he falls with him. Klaus, a member of the mage group, blames Vilner from the same group, saying his spell caused the snow beneath Aram to weaken. The group hesitates, unsure of what to do. Someone suggests they go to the earth fairies first and ask for their help, as they know the mountain best. They agree, saying Yuri would have made the same decision if he were here. They move forward, and Fina thinks to herself that the blackness in this mountain is extremely strong and strange. Meanwhile, Aram and Yuri find themselves safe but lost. They explore the area, trying to find a way out. Aram asks Yuri about the small creature, and Yuri says he senses no evil from it and sees no harm in keeping it for now. Aram is delighted, having grown fond of the creature, and names it Furball because it's round and fluffy. Yuri laughs and teases him, asking if he plans to keep it forever. Aram replies that he'll only keep it until they complete their mission. Yuri remarks that Furball seems like it wants to stay with Aram permanently. Suddenly, Yuri feels weak and tells Aram the snowstorm is too intense and they need to camp for now before continuing. Aram insists they should press on to find a way out, but Yuri explains that the cold will weaken them further and insists on waiting until the storm subsides. Aram listens to him. Meanwhile, Fina and the rest of the group reach the Earth Fairies' land. They explain that Yuri and Aram are missing. The fairies say they will immediately send out a team to search for them and ask if anyone would like to join the search party. The team agrees, saying they will take some of the fairies with them to search. The fairy leader orders another fairy named Kiki from the Fire Fairies to assemble a search team. The leader then tells the group it's fortunate they're here because they found something strange and massive in their cave. Back with Yuri and Aram, they build a snow shelter to wait out the storm. Aram takes Yuri's communication device, trying to activate it but fails. Yuri explains it's likely malfunctioning because of the storm. Aram insists they shouldn't just sit idle, but Yuri teaches him the golden rule: if you're lost, stay put. He reassures Aram that Fina and the others must have already asked the Earth Fairies for help and are searching for them. Aram asks if Yuri is sure the fairies will really look for them and if the team even managed to reach them. Yuri reassures him, saying the team has fought alongside him for a long time and would never abandon him. They'll do whatever it takes to find them. Aram admits he feels jealous of Yuri's faith in his friends and wishes he had such friends, since he's always had to do everything alone. Yuri comforts him, saying one day he'll find friends he can trust and build the bond he's longing for. Meanwhile, Fina and Marina stay with the fairies, while the rest of the group joins the search. Marina tells Fina she thinks they should have gone with the search party. Fina explains they need to stay to uncover what's in the fairies' cave. She believes Fatima didn't send them here for nothing, and they need to figure out why. Inside the cave, they find a giant statue. Fina asks Marina if she senses anything from it. Marina touches the statue and senses it holds immense magical power. Fina says they must learn more about it, believing it's the reason Fatima sent them here. Suddenly, Fina's book glows yellow, flipping its pages until it stops. Fina reads aloud, "In the depths of the maze lies the sword of hope, capable of cutting through the darkness." Fina looks at the statue shaped like a sword and says it must help them. Aram starts to drift off to sleep, but Yuri wakes him, telling him he can't fall asleep now. Yuri tries to distract him by suggesting a word game. Aram laughs and agrees, but suddenly, Furball disappears. Aram rushes out to look for it, but can't find it. He calls for Yuri, but Yuri has vanished too. The scene shifts to Shuza's army. Yurina considers seeking their help to join the fight. Shuza's guard reads her letter, informing him of her request. Back with Yuri, he searches for Aram, who disappeared after leaving the shelter. Yuri suspects Aram got lost and reluctantly steps out to look for him. He pauses, questioning whether he should walk through the storm, blaming Aram for moving when he knew they could get separated. He begins to think selfishly, wondering if it would be his fault if Aram gets lost or dies. He scolds himself for such thoughts, but is haunted by visions of failure and doubts about his ability to lead. These fears take form, and Yuri feels as though he's battling himself. He swings his sword at the vision, but it overpowers him. Suddenly, Aram appears, snapping Yuri out of it. Yuri realizes he wasn't fighting his fears, but one of the Black King's soldiers disguised as his doubts. Yuri understands the Black King manipulated his mind with fear to make him give up. He tells Aram to step aside as he takes on the soldiers, but Aram insists they fight together. Seeing Aram's determination, Yuri notices Aram is beginning to understand friendship. As more soldiers arrive, Yuri combines his mana with Aram's to defeat them. Aram is thrilled he could finally merge mana like he'd wanted. An old man named Zari appears, and Yuri recognizes him immediately. Zari casts a spell, ending the snowstorm. Aram asks Yuri who the old man is. Yuri explains Zari is Fatima's mentor and a former sage. From Zari's robes, Furball leaps out, jumping to Aram. Yuri's team calls out to them from a distance, and Yuri feels overjoyed his friends didn't abandon him. As he turns to thank Zari, the old man has disappeared. Aram tells Yuri he was right to trust his friends. Yuri replies, "They're our friends, not just mine." The reunited group returns to the Earth Fairies, celebrating and eating together. The fairy commander, Olga, tells Yuri he will join the volunteer army as soon as they're ready. Regarding the artifact, Olga reassures them it will be well guarded, and they will learn more about it. Later, Aram meets the blacksmith who crafted Dusty's sword. He excitedly tells the team how grateful he is not to have been lost alone. He thanks everyone, introduces them to Furball, and says he's beginning to feel at home with them. The next day, they head to the Island of Spirits to search for Barika. On their way, they encounter Shuza and his army. Yuri assumes Shuza will join their cause, but Shuza blocks their path, threatening Fina to hand over her book. He declares he'll defeat the Black King and rule the continent alone. The assistant of Shuza is talking and explaining to Yuri that Yurina had sent them a letter requesting them to fight in the volunteer army. However, they refuse, telling him they won't succeed his way. Aram gets very annoyed by their words and yells at them for speaking rudely to Yuri. He steps forward as a challenge, but Shuza's assistant stops him and reminds him that Shuza is the first lord of the 9 fire regions in the Ghoul Lands, while he himself is the second lord, named Sojo. Shuza then speaks and tells Aram he admires his courage and spirit but addresses him as a child. This angers Aram, who retorts, saying he is not a child and insults him. Aram is also confused by Yuri's silence since Shuza started speaking. Shuza, tired of their exchange, turns to Fina, asking her for the book she has. When Aram tries to stop him, Shuza becomes frustrated, raises his sword to push him aside, but Yuri intervenes with his sword and tells him that now is not the time for fighting among themselves. Shuza responds to Yuri, saying that his compassion has always been his biggest problem. With that compassion, he lost to the Black King. At that moment, Yuri recalls his early battles against the Black King, standing alongside Shuza in the fight. Back then, Shuza had told him to use their allies as shields to save himself because he was the most important of them all. But, of course, Yuri could never do such a thing. Now, Shuza strikes Yuri, knocking him to the ground, though not injuring him, and tells them he won't hurt any of them. He asks Fina for the book for the 3rd time, but she tells him the book's power only manifests for the one it chooses. Shuza provokes her, saying it doesn't matter because he'll make it choose him. At this moment, Yuri rises and attacks Shuza again, but Shuza easily blocks the strike. Meanwhile, Urina, the one responsible for all this, is in the palace, trying to clear her thoughts. She tells herself she must face her fears because she is one of the 17 monarchs. She believes she needs to choose someone trustworthy to inherit control of the world soon. She stands before a woman named Lilith, who casts a spell to clear her mind. Urina tells Lilith that she needs to share her thoughts with the entire world. It seems Urina has made a life-changing decision, though no one knows it yet. She gathers with 2 of her commanders and announces her decision to take responsibility, give the people hope, and finally inherit her father's throne, becoming queen. Meanwhile, Yuri is still fighting Shuza and orders Aram to protect Fina and leave quickly. The rest of Yuri's team arrives, and Shuza and Sojo command their army to attack Yuri and his group. During the fight, Yuri tries to reason with Shuza, asking him to reconsider and join their army. Shuza, enjoying the chance to provoke Yuri, declares that if Yuri chooses the path of light, he will always stand against him, embracing the path of darkness. He says he will take everything for himself, become the ruler of the 9 lands, the continent, and the power of shadow. He then reveals his arm, emitting black smoke, and tells Yuri he will seize that power and become the true Black King. Shuza attacks Yuri with all his might, showing great strength. Yuri barely manages to block his strikes. Cain runs toward Yuri, calling out to him so they can merge their mana. But just as Cain reaches him and their mana merges, Shuza strikes Yuri, breaking the bond and knocking him down. Shuza turns to Aram, striking him to get him away from Fina. He finally seizes the book from Fina. Yuri gets up and, seeing Shuza with the book, rushes at him to stop him. Suddenly, swords fall from the sky, and with them descends a massive being, revealing a girl accompanied by Irinza and Burkhart, who is transformed. Shuza asks them who they are. Irinza introduces the girl as Olezda and tells Shuza he doesn't seem so different from them, asking if he would join them. Shuza laughs and declines. Irinza commands Olezda to eliminate Shuza. Shuza's army intervenes to protect him, but Olezda proves incredibly strong and fast, wiping them out like a storm. Chaos ensues as everyone starts fighting. Irinza approaches Yuri, urging him to join the Black King's army, as it is his known destiny since he first appeared. Yuri firmly rejects her. At that moment, he envisions himself standing before him, scolding him for failing to protect his friends and allowing the book to be stolen again. Meanwhile, Aram and Fina regain consciousness from Shuza's strike and see Yuri with Irinza. They call out to him loudly to keep him from weakening and joining the Black King's army. Aram tells Fina he will go and save Yuri before they take control of him, but Burkhart blocks his path. Yuri resists with all his might, trying not to listen to the version of himself standing before him. He grabs his sword and attacks Irinza, declaring he will win this war with his friends. Irinza laughs and reminds him of Burkhart, who was once one of his friends but has now become a demon. She casts a bit of black fog into Yuri's face, urging him to see what has become of his friends. Yuri watches his companions struggling in battle, some running out of arrows, others being surrounded by the enemy, their situations dire. Irinza tells him that all his friends will die because of him, and he can't protect any of them. Yuri freezes in place, repeating Irinza's words. The black fog swirls around him, emerging from his body. Meanwhile, Aram and Fina desperately try to reach him, calling out at the top of their voices to snap him out of it. Yuri envisions himself talking to him, seeing the hand reaching out to pull him into the world of darkness. Thoughts of how the world would stabilize, and his friends would stay safe if he abandoned the idea of an army and accepted his destiny, flood his mind. Yet, Yuri decides not to let the darkness consume him. He swiftly takes his sword and drives it into the version of himself he sees. But suddenly, he realizes he has accidentally stabbed Cain. He is utterly shocked, as are the others who stare at him in disbelief. He cries out in agony, black fog pouring out of him. He recalls all the promises and dreams he and his friends shared. Meanwhile, Urina stands before her people, declaring herself queen. The shocking twist occurs when the people reject her, accusing her of being the reason they lost the war and saying she is unworthy of being their queen. Urina responds, explaining that ever since her father, the king, died, she has been fighting wars against the Black King, dragging her friends into them and acting selfishly until Yuri stopped her and convinced her to end the losing battles she waged. When she returned from the war, she found her people filled with despair, just as she had been. So, she decided to take on Yuri's role and restore hope to them because it was her duty. On the other side, black fog emanates from Yuri's eyes, hands, and every part of him as his eyes turn completely black. While people cheer for Urina's bravery, Yuri is left in torment as his friends stand helplessly, unable to save him. Suddenly, Yuri transforms into one of the Black Army's monsters, leaving everyone in shock. shock. Aram can't believe it, speaking to Yuri in disbelief, while Shuza stands smugly in front of Yuri, mocking him for his downfall and for having defeated his own comrade. Shuza tells Yuri that someone like him is unworthy of standing before the Black King, even for a moment. When Shuza attempts to attack Yuri to finish him off, the Black Army soldiers stop him, as Yuri is now one of them. Erenza begins preparing a portal to take everyone to the Black King. Aram tries to follow and enter the portal, but Berkerat stops him with an electric barrier, and Yuri and the others pass through the portal, disappearing. Everyone is left heartbroken, and Kane takes Aram to Marina so she can heal him with her magic. However, the process proves challenging and requires additional help to fully heal him. All they manage to do is close his wound. That night, Shuza approaches them, telling them to leave since there's no longer any reason to stay together now that Yuri has turned and the army they hoped for is no more. When the group becomes angry and threatens to fight him, Shuza offers them a chance to join his army if they are so determined to fight the Black King. They refuse, and Shuza dismisses them, warning them not to stand in his way, as he won't spare anyone who opposes him. Aram confronts Shuza, demanding the return of the book. Shuza taunts Aram, reminding him of how Yuri betrayed them and abandoned them. Aram declares that Yuri is not a traitor and is counting on them to help him break free of his current state because that's their duty as friends. Shuza dismisses this, claiming that Yuri's return is impossible. Unconvinced, Aram persists, but Shuza leaves without returning the book, threatening them that if they try to bring Yuri back or interfere with his plans, he will destroy them. Meanwhile, Yuri stands before the Black King, who is delighted with him, addressing him as the Black Knight. The king asks Yuri how he feels now, to which Yuri replies that he once came to this place to save the world, driven by destiny, fighting without purpose to save it. But this time, he will challenge the world. If the world falls to darkness, it means it never deserved salvation and must collapse. Yuri's team decides to return to the Tower of the Sage and asks Fina to inform the rest of the team to prepare. Klaus admires Aram for standing up to Shuza, while Marina stays by Kane's side, continuing to heal him. Though he's stable and alive, they plan to send him to the city for better medical care. Fina and Aram decide to travel to the Island of Souls, while the rest of the team heads to the Tower of the Sage to continue their mission and avoid returning to Square One. Fina hides her sorrow over recent events, but the team is scattered, leaving only her and Aram to carry on the journey. Aram notices Fina's distress and feels deeply saddened for her. He recalls Yuri's words about friends and family and now understands their meaning as he worries about Fina. They stop for the night, light a fire, and Aram prepares food. As they eat, Fina compliments his cooking. Aram tells her that her cooking is far better than his, and Fina recalls that only Yuri and Aram ever told her her cooking was good. Aram then asks Fina about her history with Yuri, since she's known him for a long time. He mentions hearing a story about Yuri defeating a dragon and asks if it's true. Fina confirms that Yuri did defeat a dragon but hesitates to discuss it further. Aram enthusiastically remarks that the dragon adventure must have been incredible, but Fina snaps at him, saying it was not enjoyable at all. She explains that the dragon, known as the Guardian of the Desert, had fallen under the Black King's darkness. She, Yuri, and their team went to stop the dragon. During the battle, they managed to bring the dragon down. The creature reverted to its original form as the Guardian of the Desert and begged Yuri to end its suffering. Fina refused, but the dragon insisted, saying many people in the desert had suffered because of it and that its death was necessary. The dragon begged Yuri to kill it, and Yuri fulfilled its request. Fina explains to Aram that they had no choice but to free the dragon from its torment and the Black King's control. Now, the story reminds her of Yuri's situation, and she fears they won't be able to save Yuri as they did the dragon. She begins crying, blaming herself for not noticing that something was wrong with Yuri earlier, even though she was closest to him. She's also terrified that Yuri might have chosen to join the Black King willingly. Aram reassures her, saying that it's impossible because the Black King targets people at their weakest moments. However, Fina begins to lose hope, feeling that darkness is their destiny and that the world will be consumed by it, leaving them powerless to stop it. Aram tells her that before he met Yuri, he thought he was very strong. After meeting Yuri, he realized he wasn't as strong as he believed and understood that no one is completely strong. Everyone has weaknesses, which is why friendships exist, to complete and support each other in times of need. He reminds Fina that their role now is not to abandon Yuri in his crisis, but to trust him because their bond is not an ordinary friendship. Fina cries even harder, realizing Aram is right. She continues continues crying until she falls asleep. Meanwhile, Kane reaches the city, where doctors help treat him. Matilda speaks with Urena, informing her of everything that has happened and assuring her that both Kane and Marina are okay. Marina finally manages to rest after staying awake for 2 days straight, focusing only on healing Kane until they reach the city. Suddenly, a commander from Urena's army enters, asking if it's true that Yuri has become a monster serving the Black King. Urena confirms this with a heavy heart. The commander becomes frightened, noting how the situation has escalated with both Berkarat and now Yuri and Shuza against them. Urena tells him that despair is futile and urges him to have hope. She adds that she intends to meet Shuza herself to reach an agreement because it's her duty as queen. She knows their worsening relationship with Shuza could spell disaster for them. Urena reflects privately, resolving to protect her people as queen. If Shuza or Yuri stands in her way, she will not hesitate to eliminate them both. Meanwhile, Shuza continues amassing more soldiers, adding over 2,000 new recruits to his army, bringing his total to over 5,000 troops, with more expected to join. Finally, we see the 3 sages at the Tower of the Sage standing before the enormous statue from the fairy cave, debating what to do with it. When the mage group arrives, the sages ask about the volunteers' army, and they recount what happened with Yuri. Fatima makes a strange remark, saying this could be a test for the new light. Confused, the sages ask her what the new light is. Fatima explains that it's only a faint possibility, but there are things that must be done to confirm it. She mentions having an important request for them, but doesn't reveal what it is yet. Meanwhile, Fina and Aram finally reach the Island of Souls. Aram and Fina find themselves with no choice but to cross the sea. As they board the boat, Aram recalls a conversation with Yuri, asking him why the Spirit Island is key to finding Baraka. Yuri had told him about a figure named Yajodo, who resides in the World Tree Library on the Spirit Island and is the one who can guide them. Aram notices that the name of the one who will help them is the same as their continent. Fina explains that Yajodo is a unique and famous fairy known to all. When they arrive at the island's shore, they find it shrouded in black mist with the king's soldiers scattered everywhere. Fortunately, a fairy appears and defeats the soldiers in front of them, urging Fina to follow her quickly, as there is no time to waste. They run after her as she requested, and she asks if they have come to meet Yajodo. They confirm this, but the island's dire state becomes apparent as they see large parts destroyed by the soldiers. Yuri suddenly appears in his new form, shocking the fairies present. He starts fighting Aram, who attempts to remind him of his old self. However, Yuri tells him they will never defeat the Black King and knocks Aram down, cryptically saying he will soon understand what he means. Aram gets back up, declaring he will never become like Yuri. The fairies gather around Yuri to distract him, giving Aram and Fina a chance to escape. Aram is reluctant to leave and wants to continue fighting Yuri, but seeing Fina's shocked expression, he chooses to get her far away and find Yajodo instead. As they move, the trees close behind them to block anyone from following. They walk a long distance until they reach a massive tree and see Yajodo, who calls them over and points out where they should go. She urges them to hurry before the fairies' barrier collapses and the mist overwhelms them. She leads them quickly, saying the book and record they need are ready. Inside, they find a vast library and a book resembling the one Shuza took. Yajodo opens the glowing yellow book and casts a spell, transporting them all to the secondary capital. Fina tells Aram they are inside Yajodo's book. As they flip through its pages, Aram asks if this is the same book she had before. Fina explains that her book was a summary of the continent's history, but Yajodo's book contains more detailed information. She continues flipping until they find the right page, saying they will return to the time of the Castle War when Baraka disappeared. They witness Yuri attacking the Black King and falling short of defeating him. Aram worries for Yuri and tries to help but realizes he can't change events that have already occurred. Yajodo tells him it's futile, as they cannot affect anything within the record. They reach the moment when the book was split, Baraka took its light, and vanished. Yajodo suggests they start searching the records from this point. They watch Yuri sitting alone, upset after the war, and Fina feels guilty for not being there to support him as she always had. Suddenly, they see Yuri in the library being attacked by fairies trying to take the book before he destroys it. However, Yuri strikes the fairy holding the book with his mist, causing the book to fall and its pages to blacken. This affects Yajodo, Fina, and Aram, separating the 3 of them. Aram finds himself in past events, watching a young Yuri pulling a small cart, trying to fight the king's soldiers alone despite his weakness. A strong warrior arrives just in time, defeating the soldiers and saving Yuri. Grateful, Yuri expresses admiration for the warrior's abilities, saying if he were as strong, he could have defended his village when it was attacked. The warrior advises him to train if he wants to become stronger. Excited, Yuri asks if training will guarantee such strength. The warrior replies that there are no guarantees. Even after days, months, or years of training, Yuri might not acquire any skills. However, if he maintains high spirits, hope, and courage, the day will come when he succeeds. Inspired, Yuri dedicates himself to training with high spirits. Over months, he works tirelessly to cut down a massive tree and eventually succeeds, understanding the warrior's lesson about persistence and courage. When his village faces a second attack, Yuri is the first to stand against the king's soldiers, fighting them alone. His mana rapidly develops, and he defeats the attackers. However, after the battle, he finds his village destroyed and no survivors. Calling out in desperation, he hears no response and collapses in tears, vowing never to lose anyone dear to him again. Events shift, and Aram sees Yuri's hand blackened by the mist, with Fina unsuccessfully trying to help him with the book. He witnesses Yuri with Cain, expressing fear that he might fail to defeat the Black King. Cain, visibly upset, acknowledges the heavy burden placed on Yuri. Yuri tells him that defeating the Black King was his decision, and he must face it. He also asks Cain to guide Aram and take responsibility for him if anything happens, seeing Aram as the light of hope to dispel the world's darkness. The scene shifts again to the snowy mountain, where the old man who saved them from the storm appears behind Aram. Surprised, Aram asks how he can see or talk to him inside the record. The old man replies that nothing is impossible for him. Aram seizes the chance to ask for great power, explaining that he wants to save Yuri but lacks the strength to do so and needs to defeat him to bring him back to the right path. The old man says he understands and raises his glowing staff. Suddenly, Aram is transported to another place where Yuri is standing on shaky ground about to collapse. Aram runs to him, grabbing him tightly before they both fall. However, Yuri's evil persona, controlled by the Black King, steps on Aram's hand to force him to let go. Aram struggles to hold on and refuses to abandon Yuri, who tries to let himself fall to protect Aram. But Aram insists he won't give up on him, reminding Yuri how he had always been lonely until Yuri invited him to join their army, bringing him happiness. Aram vows never to let go of that happiness or abandon him. With determination, Aram pulls Yuri up and unleashes a powerful light that burns the area and destroys Yuri's evil persona. Baraka suddenly appears, saying she will return when everyone rediscovers the light of hope. Aram emerges from the book to find Yajodo and Fina, who came out before him. They run to him joyfully, relieved he's safe. Fina, overjoyed, tells him she heard Baraka's voice just before leaving the book. After some time, Vina and Aram travel to an island called the Lake of Sand because the old man who had been with Aram before disappearing told him that the guardian dragon would return to life. He also mentioned that they must go to the Lake of Sand as the dragon would appear there. They meet Princess Ashrina and explain to her about the old man and the black record they found. Vina insists they don't have time and must gather all the strength they can muster. They ask for the help of Princess Ashrina, who agrees since it was the old man's wish. She orders her assistant Farah to show them what they found in the dragon's lair where Yuri was defeated. Farah shows them a carved stone with inscriptions, which Vina realizes are lyrics to a song. Princess Ashrina shares that she has always wished for the forest fairy Musaika to sing the song, believing it would have a significant effect. Aram suggests that the wish might awaken the new guardian dragon, and they must find Musaika, the legendary forest fairy, to sing the song and awaken the dragon. Princess Ashrina commands Farah to find Musaika and bring her to them. Vina requests to accompany Farah in the search. Just then, a soldier named Khalifa enters and informs the princess that he saw an army of 10,000 soldiers carrying the banner of the 9 lands. They deduce that it must be Shuza's army. However, Khalifa adds that another army is blocking Shuza's path, also numbering 10,000 soldiers. It turns out to be the Holy Capital's army led by Urina, who has decided to confront Shuza. Urina and her army stand on a high hill overlooking Shuza's forces. Both sides wait for the other to initiate the attack. Urina suggests sending messengers, but her soldiers inform her that none of the messengers returned because Shuza's forces killed them. Urina concludes that they have no choice but to fight. Suddenly, a voice calls out, announcing a message from Princess Ashrina of the desert. The voice warns both armies that fighting would bring them great suffering and suggests resolving their conflict through dialogue instead of the sword. The message offers a neutral location in the desert for their meeting and reminds them that their real enemy is the Black King, not each other. Shuzo is intrigued by this suggestion and agrees, wanting to see what would happen during the talks. Urina quickly accepts the offer, recognizing it as a rare opportunity. Khalifa introduces himself to Urina as Princess Ashrina's advisor and takes Aram to meet her. Urina is overjoyed to see Aram again and treats him like a child, much to his irritation, as always. When Shuza arrives, they all gather in the designated meeting place. Meanwhile, Farah and Vina explore the city's market and discover Muzika singing beautifully, drawing a crowd. Back at the meeting, Shuza demands Urina give up a special unit of her soldiers. She refuses, equating it to abandoning her people and her throne. Shuza dismisses her concerns, stating he only wants the soldiers and reminding her that Borkarat joined the Black King after Yori. He mocks her past tendency to let others make decisions for her, questioning her sudden interest in leadership. He tells her she's unfit to be queen. Khalifa observes that Shuza is adept at provoking others and fears the negotiations will fail. Suddenly, a soldier rushes in, informing Khalifa that the Black King's army has arrived. Both Urina and Shuza's forces join together to face the common enemy. Urina decides to fight with just the 100 soldiers at the meeting, unwilling to risk her entire army. Aram and Shuza also fight alongside them. Urina battles fiercely but grows tired, and Borkarat confronts her. He mocks her weakened state and sarcastically congratulates her on becoming queen before attacking and knocking her down. Urina rises again, attacking with all her strength, but Borkarat deflects her blows, reminding her of the time she abandoned him. She insists she acted in his best interest, but he cuts her off, rejecting her excuses. He declares she's too weak to defeat Shuza, let alone the Black King. As he moves to finish her off, her guardian intervenes and tells Urina to flee. Meanwhile, Khalifa asks Aram if he has seen Urina or Shuza. When Aram says no, Khalifa urges him to find them before either seizes the opportunity to kill the other, potentially igniting a massacre among the kingdoms. Shuza, occupied with the Black King's soldiers, is suddenly attacked by Urina. He fends her off and taunts her, further enraging her. Urina declares that he doesn't understand the struggles she endured to make her decisions. Her emotions fuel her mana, and she launches a powerful attack. For the first time, Shuza grows angry, releasing black mist from his body. They clash again, both consumed by darkness, until Aram intervenes, stopping them with his strength. At that moment, Muzika's enchanting voice fills the air, and everyone pauses to listen. Irinza, who had been enjoying the chaos, grows frustrated as Urina and Shuza begin to calm down. Noticing strands of her hair and parts of her dress turning black, Urina cuts them off. Borkarat tempts her to join the Black King, promising freedom from her burdens and responsibilities. Aram challenges Borkarat to a fight, urging Urina and Shuza to stop fighting to prevent the catastrophe Khalifa predicted. Borkarat attacks Aram, who blocks his strike while warning Urina and Shuza about the consequences of their actions. Suddenly, Olizda joins the battle, hurling her swords at them all. The furry creature accompanying Aram transforms as Olizda and Borkarat unite to attack him. However, Aram emits a brilliant light, intensifying his mana, and repels them both. Muzika's song awakens the desert dragon, and the furry creature transforms into a massive white dragon. Sensing the threat, Irinza and Borkarat retreat. Aram's sword vanishes, and he confronts Shuza with newfound confidence, demanding the record, stating it never belonged to Shuza. The book flies from Shuza's hand, glowing yellow, and lands in Aram's grasp, its blackened parts fading. Everyone thanks Aram, who returns the book to Vina. The mighty dragon, despite its fearsome appearance, remains loyal to Aram. Aram approaches Urina, declaring he will defeat the Black King and save Yori. He asks for her help. Urina instead requests that he allow her soldiers and guardians to join his forces. Overjoyed, Aram agrees. Urina apologizes to Shuza for initiating the fight and persuades him to join them. However, Shuza refuses, stating he has his own path, and departs. At that moment, we see the Black King watching everything that happened with Aram and the threat Aram poses instead of Yuri. He notices the darkness fading from part of the book in his possession, becoming very annoyed and finally feeling the threat. Yet, he says to himself how foolish humans are, repeating the same events from the beginning without realizing it, and they'll return to square one very soon. Meanwhile, Aram rides his dragon with Fina and takes Myasaka with them to the Sage Tower. The group of wizards had contacted Myasaka and requested her presence at the tower because they discovered that the statue they retrieved from the labyrinth bears a song. Only Myasaka can sing it, and that song could rid them of evil. They intend to use it to destroy the barrier surrounding the Black King's castle so they can fight him. Upon arriving at the Sage Tower, they find a ship on top holding the massive statue, with the Earth Fairies and the 3 sages present. At that moment, Fatima explains to everyone about the artifact and the song, asking Myasaka to sing it to confirm if it's truly a song as they suspect. Turns out they are correct. Aram asks if they plan to use the ship, fly close to the barrier, and destroy it. Melikar tells him they will destroy the barrier from the inside, not the outside. Aram is puzzled, asking how they could enter the barrier. Melikar explains that that he designed the ship, which can take them anywhere they wish instantly. They will send Mayasaka inside the barrier. Once she sings and the barrier is destroyed, the army will immediately attack the castle. For now, they are gathering all their forces from across the continent. They tell Fina to board the ship with Mayasaka since they will need her book. Jura declares that she and Fog will join them along with a few members of the wizard group. Meanwhile, the fairies will handle the ship itself, and Aram will accompany them on his dragon. Melekar tells them to prepare as he will perform a spell to activate the ship. However, the spell will take some time. Meanwhile, the Black King summons Yuri and asks how he would feel if all his friends died or turned into his monsters. Yuri replies that he doesn't care since everyone chooses their path. He adds that if he cannot protect them, it's better to finish them off. Aram visits the famous blacksmith who crafted his sword to repair the scratches it sustained during battles. The blacksmith remarks on how Aram's personality has changed since last time, noting his significant growth. He thanks Aram for becoming a warrior worthy of wielding his sword. Aram feels happy, taking his sword and wandering around the tower. At that moment, he encounters Vilner from the wizard group, who asks to talk to him. Vilner pulls him aside and asks if he could finish off Yuri. He tells Aram not to board the ship if he isn't sure he can do it. Aram firmly replies that he will go and bring Yuri back, not kill him. Vilner shouts at him, declaring that Yuri is no longer the same person and can never return. Aram insists he knows what he is doing and is confident in himself. Vilner tells him to give it his all because this is their last chance. Afterward, Aram joins Fina on the ship. Fina notices Aram is nervous, but Aram denies it. She laughs at him, saying it's okay to be a little nervous since Yuri always got nervous before any battle too. She shares how, when her village was destroyed, Yuri stood by her side, took her in, and they were together through all their good and bad moments. Aram reassures her that he will bring Yuri back. Suddenly, Burkhart appears on the ship and attacks Fina to take the book. Aram stops him, telling Fina to run and call for help. Dura arrives, and Burkhart unleashes his soldiers. Dura tells Melekar they need to speed up the ship's activation, but Melekar responds that the ship will be ready by morning. Dura insists they don't have that much time, and they need to leave immediately because their surprise attack has failed, and now the enemy knows the plan. Being reckless and loving a challenge, Melekar loves the idea and launches the ship. They contact Yuri to bring her army to the castle and join them there. However, Dura notices Mayasaka is missing. She begins searching for her and asks Klaus to go find her quickly. Klaus refuses, saying the enemy soldiers are too many and he wouldn't be able to escape them. Dura orders the fairies to prepare the ship for departure and launch it as soon as they find Mayasaka. Suddenly, Burkhart infects the ship with black mist, and Dura's mana runs out. Aram transfers some of his mana to Dura, surprising her with its strength. She harnesses it and fights back, but everyone grows concerned as the mist spreads rapidly across the ship. Aram gathers all the light and mana in the area and within himself, flies to the ship, and uses his power to purge the darkness. The ship glows brighter than before, and they prepare to use the portal to enter the castle. When they finally locate Mayasaka, they place her on Aram's dragon to protect her. However, once they reach the castle, Burkhart grabs Fina and redirects the ship toward the rocks ahead, causing it to crash and break apart. The connection also shows us, and the rest of the armies are cutting off and things are getting really difficult for them. Fiorina tells them they must keep going until they reach the castle and see what they find there. Meanwhile, as the ship was being destroyed, Fiorina and her army had already arrived, seeing the ship crashing into the rocks. At that moment, Aram fell from the ship along with the statue. Fiorina's assistant tells her that the barrier should have been removed as soon as the ship entered. As for Aram, he finds himself inside the castle, surrounded by many of the Black King's soldiers. He tries to get rid of them, and then his dragon appears, breathing fire and wiping out all the soldiers. We find that Musica is still on the dragon's back, unharmed, and the rest of the team gathers, all safe and sound. Aram tells them that Fina is in danger, and that they need to rescue her now. Vilner says they can save her after they defeat the Black King, and Aram agrees, telling his dragon to take care of Musica. Vogue and Dara tell Aram they need to hurry and destroy the barrier so the rest of the soldiers can enter. Musica runs toward the statue and sings the song inscribed on it. The statue emits a bright yellow light, and the barrier begins to crack piece by piece, revealing the castle to the army. Fiorina orders all her forces to begin the attack immediately. The Black King watches them, visibly frustrated, while Burkhart Berkarat stands next to him, holding Fina captive and holding the book. Fina recalls that before she boarded the ship, she had gone to Melekar, who had drawn a light seal on her body. When she remembers this, she feels reassured but also recalls that Melekar warned her that using the magic of this seal could kill her. Suddenly, Yuri appears in front of the Black King. When Fina sees him, she tries to talk to him, asking him to return to them, but he only restrains her, preventing her from moving. He takes the book and hands it to the Black King. The Black King notices that the half of the book that Fina had bears a symbol resembling a crown. The moment he touches the book, the crown glows yellow. The Black King announces that he knew Baraka was hidden inside the book and begins spreading darkness throughout his own book. Fina asks him why he wants to destroy the world, but he doesn't answer. Meanwhile, we see Aram and his team making their way through the castle, eliminating any of the Black King's soldiers in their path. Suddenly, a giant monster appears before them. They all band together to fight it since one alone wouldn't be enough. They tell Aram to go on and defeat the king. The Black King watches Aram and grows more annoyed, seeing that this boy emits a light he wishes to extinguish, but he's reluctant to eliminate him. If Aram were to join his army, it would make them much stronger. The king goes to Yuri, asking him to bring Aram to him. Outside, Fiorina fights bravely alongside her soldiers, proving herself worthy of being called a queen, and everyone is proud of her leadership in battle. Arenza also fights outside the castle, trying to fend off the volunteer army. Fiorina's guard attacks Arenza, attempting to take her down. Meanwhile, Berkarat attacks Fiorina, knocking her to the ground, but she stands up, sword in hand, refusing to give up, and declares that she will do what she must until the very end. Berkarat tells her that her way of thinking is what led him to where he is now, becoming increasingly enraged. He charges at her, slamming her into the rocks, and tells her she must take responsibility because she's the one who brought him to this state. Fiorina replies that she won't run from her responsibilities anymore, but that human strength and weakness ultimately belong to each individual. She speaks to him kindly, telling him that he won't find his worth by seeking it in others, and he must understand that. This only infuriates Berkarat further, and he strikes her again. At that moment, a seal that Berkarat had before his transformation falls from Fiorina, as she's been holding onto it all this time. Berkarat takes the seal in his hand. Fiorina asks him to return it, explaining that the seal belonged to a brave and noble knight. She adds that if he holds her responsible for his condition, then she must bear that responsibility now and finish him. Berkarat remembers when he first received the seal, when all he wanted was to become Fiorina's personal guard. At that moment, Fiorina attacks him, knocking him off the cliff without him defending himself. He falls to his death, and the darkness surrounding him vanishes. Fiorina covers him with their empire's flag, still seeing him as one of them until the very end. Suddenly, the Black King rises, spreading fog that brings back all his fallen knights, making the darkness even stronger. The fog targets Musica, who was still singing her song, causing her to fall and stop singing. Meanwhile, Yuri faces Aram and attacks him. Aram tells him that he'll bring him back, even if it means defeating him. He tells Yuri that it was he who got him to this point, only to abandon him. But he won't let Yuri give up on himself or on the life he fought for. He tells Yuri that he doesn't have to fulfill the desires of others, but should have followed his own. Aram asks Yuri if there's anything he wishes to accomplish now. Yuri replies that he has no desires or responsibilities and only wants to increase his dark power, destroy everything around him, and end the world he once fought for, continuing his attack on Aram. Outside, we see the army retreating as the Black King's knights keep growing in number and refuse to die. The darkness intensifies, and the wall begins to reform. At this point, Aram recalls Vilner's words before they boarded the ship, telling him he must be ready to finish off Yuri at any moment. Aram understands that words will never bring Yuri back, and he must fight him himself. He realizes he faces two options. Either Yuri comes back or he dies. He asks himself whether he can actually do it. But for the first time in the wars between the army and the Black King, neither Aram nor the army surrenders. Their experience grows with every passing moment, whether it's Fiorina leading and fighting alongside her army, or Aram radiating light to fill the world. Aram attacks Yuri with his light. Meanwhile, Arenza grows increasingly frustrated with Fiorina, seeing her as a source of hope for her army, and attacks her. But unexpectedly, Shuza arrives just in time, defending Fiorina and bringing his entire army to join the battle. Musica is saved before anything happens to her, and they make her sing again, causing the barrier to break once more. As for Arenza, she stands before Shuza and Urina, declaring they have no no chance and won't be able to capture their castle. Shuza assures her not to worry about them, as Aram is the one who will finish them off. He speaks with great confidence in him because he believes that anyone who can stand before them and speak the way Aram does is strong, brave, and capable of achieving the impossible. Irinza is surprised, as she thought Shuza would join them. She casts a spell, making the sky rain fireballs. These fireballs fall on everyone, not distinguishing between her soldiers or the volunteers. While watching the chaos she caused, Shuza attacks her, catching her off guard and injuring her arm. He tells her that he doesn't care about the friendship she assumed he had because he thinks for himself, unlike others. Irinza responds, saying she sees otherwise, that he's just like his friends and must die like them. She begins to attack him with weak strikes due to her injury. Shuza counterattacks, delivering a final blow that finally kills her. Meanwhile, the Black King talks to his daughter, Fina, telling her that the end of the world is near. She tells him she'll never let him destroy the world and uses the seal on her body to absorb all the darkness from the book. As for Yuri and Aram, before Aram attacks Yuri, he tells himself that the armor and clothes Yuri wears are made from the Black King's element, and if he can destroy the darkness within, like the barrier, maybe Yuri will return and the darkness will leave him. However, it turns out Aram's light power isn't enough against Yuri, revealing that Yuri is much stronger than Aram, and he knocks him down. At this moment, some of Aram's team, including Kane, arrive. Aram is overjoyed to see him, and they all stand before Yuri, telling him he isn't alone. They agree that to bring Yuri back, they need to remove the black armor from his eyes and body. They unite and attack him all at once, each showcasing their power against Yuri. Aram steps in and delivers the final blow, using his light and strength to destroy the armor on Yuri. Then, we see Yuri in his mind, battling himself in a completely different world, trying to escape the darkness he's trapped in. However, the power of the darkness keeps stopping him until he sees Aram's light, which guides and strengthens him, helping him fight and defeat his evil self. Yuri finally returns, and all the darkness leaves him, replaced by light. They are overjoyed when they see him, feeling as if they've won the war. Fina, meanwhile, absorbs all the darkness from the book, just as she intended. Her father, the king, tells her she sacrificed herself for nothing because he can easily turn the book black again by simply touching it. At that moment, Aram and Yuri stop him, attacking him together. They take Fina to Marina for treatment, and she regains consciousness, seeing the kind-hearted Yuri before her. Together, they all stand united against the Black King, unlike last time when they left Yuri to face him alone. The Black King uses his skills to create a portal, allowing him to move anywhere within the castle, trying to scatter and kill Aram. However, Yuri prevents him from harming Aram or doing anything to him. They stand side by side, one in front of the king and one behind him. At the same time, they both thrust their swords into him, but the king is unharmed. Instead, he transforms into a gigantic black dragon. This is when the furry ball dragon intervenes, and it becomes a dragon versus dragon battle. However, Aram doesn't let his pet fight alone, and he and Yuri fly up, each trying to stab the black dragon. At that moment, the furry ball dragon charges at the black dragon, knocking it hard onto the rocks, severely injuring both of them. The furry ball dragon reverts to its small, round pet form, unharmed. As for the black dragon, it transforms back into the Black King but larger, with wings. He channels all the darkness in his body toward Aram and Yuri. Aram counters the attack with his light, telling the king he won't allow him to destroy the world and the life he's learned to value, thanks to Yuri. Suddenly, the Black King explodes, and light spreads everywhere. The king returns to his natural form, but at that moment, Fina dies. They all rush to her, and Aram says he can heal her with his light power, but the king stops him, saying it's pointless and they won't be able to save her. We then see the king as a normal human, with all the darkness gone from him. He feels his love for Fina as her father, so he takes the book and casts a spell on it, asking it to save his daughter's life. The book absorbs the light and hope from the king, transferring it into Fina's body. The darkness within her disappears, and she comes back to life. However, the king dies, sacrificing himself for his daughter. The light within Fina manifests as Barika, who revives Fina. Outside the castle, the soldiers celebrate joyfully as the Black King's soldiers vanish, knowing they've won the battle. Urina salutes them all for not losing hope until the very last moment.